Yes, Bob.
This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. Adoption of minutes.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on February the 8th, 2022 be adopted.
Okay, someone to move, Councillor Mennel, and someone to second, Councillor Ketchabah. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Presenting petitions, presentations, and delegations, and we do have a delegation this morning. I'd like to welcome Keith Ponton, the Director of IBI Group. Good morning, Keith, and the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me at your meeting this morning. I'll also introduce my colleague, John George, who we worked with myself on the report that we're presenting today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the presentation that we have for you today is a summary of the report that is also forms part of our final work product. We will briefly take you through the highlights of the report, starting with results, options, and both technical and funding options, and finally recommendations. The scope of this assignment started last year with an assessment of internet speeds, broadband speeds within the county. And to summarize our findings, the county, what we found, has approximately 60% of the premises are served with the minimum broadband speed that's identified by the CRTC. However, large geographic sections, as indicated by the road segment lengths as an indication, or roughly 76% of county road segments do not meet premises on there do not meet the minimum speed that are prescribed by the CRTC. So it is somewhat of a rural focus on the challenge that Elgin County faces. Go to the next slide, please. To that end, our scope was to develop technical options with a vision to the long-term solution of this problem, this situation. One of the first options that we looked at, which is the ideal end state, in our opinion, for the county, is a fiber optic infrastructure that would connect all underserved premises. This was evaluated based on road segment length and average industry costing metrics. While this does represent a very high investment cost, the major pro of this approach, this technology, is that it is very high capacity and has a long useful life in excess of 30 years. The major con to this option, of course, is the high cost, and it does require longer deployment timeframes if you were to contemplate rolling this out in a county-wide approach. Next slide. The next option that we reviewed was a scaled back version of the previous option, and this approach looked at the feasibility of implementing a fiber optic backbone to fixed wireless locations. These locations, for planning purposes, were evaluated to be either existing tower structures that are well placed geographically, as well as have the correct height to provide good wireless coverage. In this approach, the premises along the path to the towers would be connected with the backbone, and the towers would be used to provide improved broadband service. Next slide. The propagation models that we looked at that would include using these towers does indicate that this would provide a fairly comprehensive coverage for the county should this approach be considered. So this map just provides you some indication of estimated signal strength using this approach, indicating that it would cover the premises within the county's boundaries. Next slide. If we could move to slide 7. I don't know if it's just my screen, but I'm not seeing slide 7, but I'll speak to it. The costs related to the both fiber and wireless approach are identified on slide 7. Of course, the wireless costs are quite a bit less than the fiber to the prem costs, but these really represent bookends that we would use in terms of evaluating the cost options and the technical options for the county. The pro of the wireless option certainly being low cost, but the con being that it's a shorter term investment and that you would expect to have to upgrade the wireless infrastructure as you progress. Moving on to slide 8, just checking in if my audio is still fine, if everyone is hearing my presentation. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
it's fine.
Okay, thank you. The slide 8 looks at grant funding options. Recently, the Ontario government launched the Ontario Connects program, which is a massive investment, the largest investment currently, well, within Ontario and within Canada at a provincial scale, with a view to connect all locations in Ontario through a reverse auction subsidy process. This program is currently being rolled out. Auctions are occurring. They are the results of the auction are confidential at this point to the program and to the bidders. So it's something that we would expect more information on as this program rolls out, and certainly Elgin County was targeted within this auction process as a county that would be focused on for fiber optic infrastructure with the reserve bid being applied as the subsidy. So this program rides over top of some existing and past Ontario government programs to fund broadband, as well as the Federal Universal Broadband Fund, which is currently in the process of identifying funded projects through that funding mechanism as well. Broadband is an infrastructure that has more than one funding mechanism within both federal and provincial governments. So there is also the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, under which broadband is an eligible infrastructure. This same program is typically used to fund more traditional infrastructure such as roads, bridges, community recreation facilities, etc. The additional funding mechanism that is available for broadband is a program through the Canada Infrastructure Bank, where private equity investors can put together projects and apply for a loan, often a low interest long-term loan from the Canada Infrastructure Bank to help fund proposed broadband projects. So these funding options are available to the county and to industry players that are currently either providing services within the county or contemplating to provide service. Moving on to slide 9, the recommendations that we developed from this program included, there were a number of recommendations, some related to the technology options that we spoke of, as well as the first recommendation, which involves having a senior staff person or persons providing essentially focused from the county's perspective on the county's broadband situation and providing advocacy, strategic purchasing, and ISP coordination to the county and on behalf of the county. I'll briefly step through each one of these recommendations on the subsequent slides. So moving on to slide 10, this first recommendation does take the form of a focused individual or individuals within the county. Their role primarily is to advocate for the county and to be a liaison between the internet service providers that are currently providing services within the county or planning to provide service. These would also include the ISPs that were the successful bidders through the Ontario Connects reverse auction process. The other key part of this role is to essentially just through the cost of a staff salary, provide a focused procurement strategy in terms of the county's spending on broadband infrastructure. What I mean by this is that the county today currently has connectivity needs to support its operations. And certainly by focusing that purchasing power that exists today through one or more internet service providers, you can advance the county's interests in providing service to underserved areas and coordinate some of your existing spending and leverage that with the end goal of providing improved connectivity to the areas that we've identified as requiring that do not meet the current federal standard. The lens that we view each of these recommendations is one of what will the impact of the Ontario Connects program bring or change in terms of the recommendation. This recommendation is certainly aligned, and the timing is quite important as the Ontario Connects program rolls out to ensure that the county's perspective and ultimately the goal of connecting residents and businesses in underserved areas within the county are vocalized and brought to the attention of all the ISPs that will be spending and investing in the local market. Recommendation 2 supports the long-term vision. And this is the long-term vision of a fiber optic connected county that connects businesses and residents. Certainly it is somewhat aligned with the vision of the Ontario Connects program. The costs are large, as we had spoke of. We do think that pending the successful execution of the reverse auction with the lot that is focused on Elgin County, that this program combined with this recommendation combined with the Ontario Connects program will go a long ways towards solving the current broadband challenges that the county has. At the time we wrote the report, and as we speak to you today, we do not yet have some certainty on the results of the Ontario Connects program. Thus, it's recommended that any action towards direct county involvement in this direction is paused pending the outcome of the Ontario Connects program. Moving on to recommendation 3. This is the lower cost, the lower budget option that involves focusing on a fiber optic build to select radio towers. This could also be adapted to focus more on existing county infrastructure, i.e. water towers that some may be suitable in substitute for leasing space on existing radio towers. Again, a lower cost approach, but the same bottom line here in that any action towards implementing this recommendation should be paused until the impact of the Ontario Connects program is known, which we expect to be mid-year 2022 this year. Finally, recommendation 4 goes beyond recommendation 3 to extend what would be a fiber optic backbone to radio towers and possibly water towers to include connecting county municipal sites and residents along the proposed path. So small incremental investment above option 3, 3.7 million additional. Again, same comment with respect to the Ontario Connects program, that any investment or action towards this recommendation should be paused in light of this Ontario Connects program running its course and the results in mid-year of this year. That brings us to the final slide. I'm pleased to receive any feedback or questions from council, and with that, we will incorporate that into a final report for council and county administration. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. My biggest concern with the fiber to every road is I live on a road that has fiber. I live on a farm and I live far too back from the road, so I cannot use that fiber. And I know a lot of rural farms, that will be the case, that their dwelling is too far from the road. How would we, I don't know what percent that would be, but that is one concern I have. And that you can answer. One other one is the idea of radio towers possibly on municipal water towers. Our municipal water towers are already overwhelmed with internet connections on them, and we have our SCADA system as well that runs off those. So I don't know how much space is going to be available on water towers. So those are just 2 comments or questions for your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. If I may address the first comment or question, certainly we've seen many rural properties where the actual dwelling is a fair distance set back from the road. In other municipalities that we work with, oftentimes there is a cost shared approach with the property owner in that the service provider may be funding the first 100 or 200 meters of that connection, and the balance would need to be funded by the property owner to make the connection to the actual dwelling. In some cases, some counties have provided the construction standards, essentially the type of trenching that would be necessary. So those property owners that are so inclined can self-perform some of the trenching required and save some costs in the overall program.
Okay, sorry, are you going to answer the second question now, Keith?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Go ahead.
With respect to the use of water towers, certainly understood that this the actual technical requirements and existing loading conditions on the water towers would need to be investigated. Some may not be suitable based on that, and in that case, existing telecommunications towers that are placed throughout the county are available through an industry process of co-location to allow you to lease space for antenna attachments on those towers.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Are there any further questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Thank you very much, Keith and John, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that the presentation titled Elgin County Broadband Assessment and Proposed Solutions from the IBI Group be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, Councillor Jones and Councillor McPhail. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, Committee of the Whole.
Be it resolved that we do now move into Committee of the Whole.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, Councillor Martin and Councillor Jiguer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, internet connectivity, and there will be a report.
Resolved that the report titled Internet Connectivity IBI Group Final Report and Committee Recommendations from Deputy Warden Marks dated February 17th, 2022 be received and filed for information, and that Elgin County Council support the Connectivity Committee's recommendation to leverage existing staff resources and the Connectivity Committee to support IBI Group's option number 1, which is advocacy, strategic purchasing, and ISP coordination to facilitate and advocate for investment in broadband infrastructure, specifically to senior government and through the private sector.
Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks and Councillor McPhail. I'll turn this over to Deputy Warden Marks. Maybe you can give us an overview of your report, please.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'll certainly do my best. It's actually pretty exciting to table this report today. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the excellent work we had from our consultants. Acknowledge the committee itself, Councillor McPhail and Councillor Jiguer, plus the rest of the members. Early on, we met twice a month. It was a pretty heavy schedule and just a lot of fact finding. And I know most of us, when the meetings were over, we go home and we think about it. And, you know, this is a pretty urgent, necessary endeavor. So we spent a lot of time researching on our own, I think. I have to acknowledge senior staff. And that was a cooperative effort from all levels of senior staff. I'm looking, a lot of them here in the room. So I want to thank them on behalf of the committee because there was a tremendous amount of work, research. So the report's there. I'm not going to read every word, although it was suggested I do, but I won't. Try to answer any questions you have. There's a lot of information there. The committee have seen this numerous times, so I think we've kind of grasped it. So I'll encourage Councillor McPhail and Jiguer, if I can't, jump in and help me out. But I think there's a lot of common sense. We're still in that vacuum. We don't know what's coming in the next 6 months. The Ontario Connects, we don't know where we'll be with funding. Fingers crossed. But I'm fully in support, and actually the committee was unanimous in their decision to recommend this to the council. But I think we've done a lot of fact finding. I think, I know my connectivity at home is a whole lot better than it was 2 years ago. Through, you know, we're slowly inching ahead. I think the competition, the industry itself is trying harder. So I'm optimistic that this is the route to go. And maybe I'll shut up and I'll entertain any questions, but I will ask Councillor McPhail or Jiguer to jump in with any other comments.
Do you have further comments, Councillor Jiguer or Councillor McPhail? Go ahead, Councillor McPhail.
Certainly echoing a lot of things that Deputy Warden Marks has said. I think that County Council has entrusted this committee to go out and, using a farm analogy, go out and gather all the eggs up that we can find and put them in a basket. We've done that. I think the recommendation coming forward now that we need someone to look after and see what those eggs are doing. I think that we're at a point in time that senior staff is coming forward and feel that for the interim that they have the capacity to do that for us and keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening along with Ontario Connects, with anything else that's going on in the industry. Possibly start building some bridges with some of the ISPs that are out there. I think this is the next logical step in this process moving forward, and certainly would hope that County Council would be able to support that first initiative, that we have a good understanding of what we're getting into before we dive into it with both feet. Usually the Algon County being cautious moving forward approach, but I think this does make a whole lot of sense.
Councillor Jagir, did you have some comments?
Sure, thank you, Madam Warden. Just to add a little bit, I want to say that it continues to be a pressing issue, so that urgency has not gone, but it was a lot of work just to figure out what is the right thing for the county to do. So the funding piece is an evolving, moving landscape, and it is very tempting to maybe overreact and step out of our lane and start getting into something that in the end is not a core responsibility of the county. So I fully support the option where we've landed, where we must be active and very proactive in facilitating and coordinating the resources that are out there, and facilitating and removing red tape and all of that. So I'm very satisfied with that option as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council to the committee? Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Warden. With regards to the Ontario Connects, I assume, like, obviously these are going to be the big dogs out there. So is this going to be the backbone, and then after the backbone's put in, we have to go out and figure out what we're going to do locally? Is that ultimately Paul's Notes version?
I would say yes, although it's still a lot of unknowns, unfortunately.
Councillor Martin.
Just, it happened this week. I was in a conference with 4 municipalities on asset management plans, ministry, and when my internet at home, suddenly I had to turn off the video. He asked me to because I was cutting out, and he immediately said, the minister said, that will be dealt with and shortly by Ontario. So we'll see. I said, well, that would be very nice. I've been dealing with this for a long time.
Shortly means.
Councillor Purcell.
Just a question, has the committee gone to the stage of a job description yet for this position? And if not, I really encourage them to do that, because I think the committee has a better handle on what we need or want, i.e. we need a champion that's going to make it happen, but you also need somebody with enough technical ability to keep the eggs from going rotten. So, that's maybe your next step after today, I would assume.
Through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Purcell. So at this time, I wouldn't recommend that a job description be developed necessarily. There are too many unknowns. Instead, what I proposed to the Connectivity Committee was that we develop a tangible action plan. And from there, we have staff undertake those actions, work with the committee to make sure that we're meeting the needs of this objective as presented by IBI. And then as part of the committee and by extension County Council's review of our activities in August of 2022, at that point, I think we would work on developing a dedicated job description if that was what we find as part of our evaluation is needed.
That gives us some timeline too, that we know you're doing something. As you said, the urgency's out there, and the customers don't see any reason for any delay. So there are legitimate reasons.
Deputy Warden Marks.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, our committee members, we've gained a fair bit of knowledge through this, but so has senior staff, an awful lot. And we have found out that this county is a pretty strange animal. So what'll work in West Lorne will not work in BAM, etc. So there's probably not one solution. There's a whole lot of solutions, and that's what the hybrid approach. I think, and we needed the expert advice from our consultants, you know, because I might have an idea and an opinion, but that's not an expert one. So it's been a process, but it's been a good process. So I'm quite pleased where we're at. Looking ahead, we don't know what's coming, like, you know, provincial election, money, whether we get our fair share, all those things. But I think if we keep going the direction we are, I think we're better off than we were. And certainly the urgency is still there for so many reasons.
Councillor Mennel?
Just a comment, and I had a dinner meeting with one of my cousins who came from Alberta. And when Ralph Klein was the Premier of Alberta, he put fiber optic into every road in Alberta. So I think that is the end solution. But in the interim, I think there's an option here to get towers, because this could be 5 years or 10 years before everybody gets fiber. But I think there's the option here to have towers at relatively inexpensive compared to the fiber throughout the county, but will improve, and certainly in Sally's case and my own case, where Uplink put a receiver from Belmont just down locally on Vienna Line, and I went from 2 megabytes to 70 overnight. And I think I was paying Eastlinks $75, now I'm paying $100. So well worth it. So the option is there, and the connectivity will work.
Okay, are there any further comments or questions? Good discussion. With no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is Terrace Lodge Redevelopment Fundraising Report.
Be it resolved that the report titled Terrace Lodge Redevelopment Fundraising Report and proposed amendments to terms of reference dated February 14th, 2022 from Councillor Jaguar be received and filed for information, and that the 2021 fundraising report from the Terrace Lodge Redevelopment Fundraising Committee be approved for distribution, and that council approve amendments to the Terrace Lodge Redevelopment Fundraising Committee terms of reference to allow for voting member from each of Elgin's local municipal partners and to maintain quorum at 5.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Purcell, and seconded by Councillor McPhail. And I'll turn this over to you, Councillor Jaguar, if you could give us an overview, please.
Certainly. Pardon me. Thank you, Madam Warden. Yes, on behalf of the Terrace Lodge Fundraising Committee, I'm pleased to share with you our 2021 report. We're very happy with the results. We've tried to capture all of the highlights in the report that you have before you. The year 1 of 3, the strategy was very much about laying a foundation. There was lots to do in terms of pre-work and the branding, all the mechanics of fundraising, and raising awareness about the campaign, and of course, raising funds. So on all of those points from strategy number 1, I feel that the numbers show that we have delivered on all of that. So we, like I said, we're very pleased. The numbers do a good job of describing the success of the campaign so far. And and we've raised the target that we're looking for. And we're still at this point, I know that's important, and we want to be transparent about expenses. We're tracking about 9%, so 9 cents to the dollars, but that overall goal is to be at 4% or under. So year 1 is to be expected. There's a lot more material and a lot of upfront expenses, and you will see a decrease in year 2 and 3, so we will average out and reach that target. So, and on that, I want to thank the committee. We've been able to adjust the campaign and the strategy, and how do you do fundraising? Everybody had to figure out how you do fundraising in the middle of a pandemic. So I think that makes our results even greater in that context. And I want to thank staff as well. That's why we've dedicated a slide in the report to that. But also on that slide, you don't see the IT staff, which is typical of IT, always behind the scenes, but obviously a key contributor to figuring out the mechanics of fundraising. So After 1 year, we were able to reflect and reflect on lessons learned and experience, and then figure out, so what's the strategy for year 2? If you want to bring up that slide, just focus the main focus for year 2 in terms of the items. The focus will be on recreation items, at least for the first half. And to do that, the other thing we want to do is take a county-wide approach. So I think it made sense for the first year to focus on, the Aylmer-Malahide sort of hub where Terrace Lodge is located and it's well-known. But I think we all know that the residents at Terrace Lodge are not just from Aylmer-Malahide, they are from across the county. And I think it's important to just, with all of our homes, to take a county-wide approach generally. So we want to make recommendations today to council to modify our terms of reference to reflect this strategy and our outreach being county-wide. And one of our priorities being to recruit then additional committee members to reflect that and to help us with this county-wide approach. So in a nutshell, the key recommendation today is, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the report and the results of 2021, but the key ask and recommendation would be to modify our terms of reference to ensure that there is representation from each municipality on the committee. And we would ask each municipality to nominate someone, either it could be a councillor, or a member of the community as determined by the municipality. And we think this will be a good strategy for year 2. We've learned from year 1 that we need, the outreach works if you have access to individuals, if people can open doors, if people can invite you to meetings so you can have conversations. That's the way to really be successful. So for that, we need that extra help. We need extra eyes and ears and hands and and boots on the ground across the county. So we feel this recommendation would help us achieve that strategy. And at the same time, we also feel it's reasonable because we have access to hybrid committee meetings, so we wouldn't expect committee members to travel in any sort of central location for a meeting. So we feel that would still be accessible for anyone who wants to join the committee. And so accessibility was a key factor in considering that, and I'll leave it at that in terms of recommendations. Oh, the only point I wanted to say, because we recognize it is difficult to attend meetings at time, one of the recommendations, as you probably saw, is to keep the quorum at 5, so that meetings on a monthly basis can keep moving and key decisions can be made, even if some members of the committee are unable to attend. With that, happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Councillor Jiguer. Are there any questions for Councillor Jiguer? Councillor Martin?
Just one, I was curious that at the moment BAM doesn't have a representative on the committee. Is it someone who's left recently, or there just hasn't been one?
There was one at the very beginning, but was not able to continue in the committee. It was left vacant.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Purcell.
Just a couple, I assume that once we get past today that Dominique and the warden will send out a invite to all of the municipalities to deal with formally. I would suggest it's probably a good time to re-invite the Premier and the Minister down to celebrate what we've done so far and how much they're investing. But more importantly, we could probably tie that to the fundraising and celebrate the milestone and have them give us the kind of publicity that might help bring in some more money going forward. And might be an opportune time because they can't make those visits once June gets here, but they certainly like to wave the flag right now. So we'll leave that with you if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. Councillor McPhail.
Yes, Madam Warden, it does make sense to me because, Terrace Lodge is not solely an Aylmer or a middle or a height facility. It's an Elgin County home. And we're all members of this family, and certainly I think that it's a reasonable request to bring the whole county to bear, as it's a benefit to all of us, even though it might be some distance away. It is still an Elgin County home.
Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is the path forward on library fines.
Be it resolved that the results of the public consultation process and a path forward on library fines at Elgin County Library survey and report authorized by Elgin County Council at the September 28th, 2021 meeting be received and filed for information. And that Elgin County Council hereby authorizes Elgin County Library to proceed on a path forward for the elimination of Elgin County Library fines as outlined in the fine-free framework received by County Council on September 28th, 2021, and that all overdue fines be eliminated effective December 31st, 2024, subject to a progress report and impact analysis for Council's consideration in 2023. And further, that the February 22nd, 2022 presentation titled A Path Forward on Library Fines, Next Steps from the Digital Services Librarian and Library Coordinator be received and filed for information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Mennel and Councillor Martin. Good morning, Brian. Are you going to be, okay.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Warden, and through you to County Council. Firstly, I'd like to introduce and welcome Shanine Steele, who is our Digital Services Librarian. She's been with our library team since the summer months, and she's been a valuable addition to our library team already with regards to our digital projects and in a number of other areas. She's also been integral in our library fine-free team, and she'll be presenting some data after the public survey this morning.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us here this morning. Following our presentation made to Council on September 28th, 2021, Elgin County Library created a public opinion survey using the Engage Elgin tool to measure the community's opinion on Elgin County Library going fine-free. And I'm here today to present those results to you. So just a quick overview of our presentation this morning. I will present a summary of the survey results before going into some more detail for 3 of the questions that we asked. Then we will have a look at some suggestions and strategies to consider, some strategic tools, followed by next steps and recommendations. So a summary of the survey results, or what we found out. So most people are in support of a fine-free initiative. Of the 151 survey participants, 88% or 133 people were in support of a fine-free initiative. And only 6% or 9 people were not in support. Most people don't owe fines. Approximately 66.9% or 101 people of the survey participants do not currently owe fines to Elgin County Library. And 48 people or 32.5% identified at the time of the survey as owing fines. Of interest, out of the people who support the fine-free initiative, most of them don't owe fines. Of the 133 people who indicated support of the initiative, only 35.3% of them currently owe fines. 63.9% did not owe fines at the time of the survey. Many people shared comments. So we provided a place at the bottom of the survey for respondents to share any thoughts or concerns, and 70 people, or 46.3% of all participants, did include a response. We also asked the library use of the participants. We asked how often they use the library, with 46.4% using the library 1 to 2 times per month, 35.1% using the library 1 to 2 times per week, and 9.3% using the library every day. 7.9% of the respondents indicated that they only use the library 1 to 2 times per year. So this slide is the pie chart that shows the answers to question 1. The big question: would you support a fine-free movement at Elgin County Library? Of note here is that option 3 was an input error that was corrected the day after the survey went live. One person did choose that, and for the purposes of our report, we're assuming that they meant other. Question 3 was, do you currently owe fines to Elgin County Library? And of note here is the one person who selected other indicated in the comment that they weren't sure if they owed fines or not.
That must have been
Question 4 asked the participants to identify which municipality they currently live in. We were happy to receive survey responses from all of the municipalities in Elgin County. I'm now going to pass the presentation over to Natalie Marlowe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shanine. So the final question of the public survey, question number 5, ask respondents to share any thoughts or concerns or comments they might have regarding the Elgin County Library's Fine Free initiative. So almost half, or 46.3%, or 70 out of the 151 participants included a response. So these responses and suggestions have provided Elgin County Library with further considerations for our fine-free approach. So the next 3 slides outline 3 concerns expressed by those survey participants. So this particular comment on this slide expresses the importance of removing financial barriers, creating equity, and increasing access to information relative to fines and library service. Elgin County Library has developed specific strategies that will be outlined in the following slides to address these concerns. This comment expresses the appreciation for Elgin County Library's Food for Fines program, in which the donation of non-perishable food items by library cardholders is accepted at branches in lieu of overdue fines owed. In support of going fine-free, customers will be encouraged to continue to donate non-perishable food items to assist local food banks. So this comment expresses support for going fine-free and eliminating fines, as well as a concern for financial loss. Voluntary goodwill monetary donations will continue to be gratefully received at library branches in lieu of overdue fines. So as mentioned, Elgin County Library has developed strategies to apply throughout the framework to mitigate concerns expressed in the survey comments and to support our fine-free process. These alternative strategies will remove financial barriers and increase access to library materials and services while encouraging responsible usage of library materials and user accountability. So 4 strategic tools, as listed here on this slide, include continuing to apply replacement fees for lost or damaged items, maintaining a shorter loan period for high demand and popular items, continuing to alert customers with courtesy messages, so this would be when items are coming due and are overdue, or when an overdue item has been placed on hold by another customer and that person is now waiting for that item, and also implementing a more frequent courtesy notice schedule. As well as limiting card access to library materials as a final measure of this schedule. This final quote comes from survey participants expressing appreciation for not only library services, but also the library staff team. And specifically here, Vicki and Gabrielle at the Rodney branch. So these 2 slides, this slide and the next, show that the fine-free movement is continuing throughout our public library neighboring systems and peers. Effective January 1st, 2022, both Wellington County Library, in the previous slide, the press release there, and Huron County Library, as illustrated by the press release on this slide, will be fine-free and will no longer charge fines on overdue materials. So as proposed, Elgin County Library's next steps on a path forward for the elimination of overdue library fines will be as follows. Proceed with system and operational preparations for phase 1 of Elgin County Library's fine-free framework effective June 1st, 2022. This phase eliminates fines on all children's materials and reduces fines on adults and youth. Also prepare a marketing and awareness campaign to communicate phase 1 to Elgin County Library communities, local municipal partners, and county residents. This campaign will promote library use and new card creation with fewer materials on fines, as well as encourage returning library items and responsible usage with replacement fees still in place. Library users will also be encouraged to donate at library branches in lieu of fines. As well, we will report back to County Council by early 2023 to present an impact analysis of Phase 1, as well as any other current considerations, as conducted prior to proceeding to Phase 2 in 2023. Lastly, the revenue reduction of $5,000 offset by library donations, and as presented in the September 28th, 2021 meeting, is already incorporated into the library's 2022 operating budget. The recommendations before you are that the results of the public consultation process, survey, and report be received, filed for information, and that Elgin County Council hereby authorizes Elgin County Library to proceed as outlined in the fine-free framework received by County Council on September 28th, 2021, and that all overdue fines be eliminated effective December 31st, 2024, and this would be at the end of our phased approach. Also that the February 22nd, 2022 report or presentation as submitted by the Digital Services Librarian and Library Coordinator be received and filed for information. So attached reference documents are available for further information. And finally, thank you on behalf of our Library Fine Free team. So Brian, Shanine, Susan, Deline, and myself, this concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor McPhail, and then I believe Councillor Jagger, so we'll start with who wants to go.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just a clarification, when we're talking about eliminating fines, would you also eliminate all current fines, or is this just moving forward?
That's a good question, Madam Warden, through you to County Council. So our plan for forgiveness would be to align with our phased approach. So for example, in our Phase 1, we're targeting children's materials, and we would align forgiveness with that.
And just to add a comment, Madam Warden, I support this approach. I think it's the entire movement. I think just last Thursday, the entire Toronto library system went fines free, even if it's, for them, it's $500,000 in potential revenue. And I agree with the comments and say, but this doesn't send the right message in terms of public property, but I think it is a tool that is having unintended consequences. So I think we just need to find other ways, and this is where you're heading, so I fully support that. Thank you.
Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a question, and certainly I support policy changes that are researched and make sense going forward, but has any thought been given to, or is there any need or appetite that after an appropriate amount of time that a report comes back to County Council to just inform us of how well this policy change is working? To go.
Sorry, Madam Warden, to answer the question, yes, I think as we provide progress reports and the impact analysis between each phase, I think we can definitely provide an update as to how the policy change is working.
Yeah, I think the worst nightmare is to go into a local branch and there's no inventory in the branch. If you travel around to garage sales, you see a lot of cheap books for sale. So, yeah, I think that that's a reasonable approach to keep County Council informed on how it's working out. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Thank you very much for your presentation, and it sounds like council's pretty on board with this. It sounds good, so have a great day.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor?
We have a mover and second. Yeah, okay.
And that's
How did that, Dunk? How did that?
How did that?
The next item is approval of the Southold official plan.
Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin repeals the official plan of the Township of Southold as adopted by bylaw number 2011-13 and all subsequent amendments thereto, And that the Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin modifies and improves the official plan of the Township of Southwold as adopted by bylaw number 2021-68, and that staff be directed to provide notice of this decision in accordance with the Planning Act.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Jones and Councillor Purcell. And Brian, I believe we'll turn this one over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. Very briefly, county staff last fall received the new official plan as adopted by the Township of Southwold Council. Upon receipt and with the support of our external planning consultant, 57 recommended modifications to the plan were provided to staff and their consultant, all of which were accepted. And so before you, happy to recommend its approval.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Jones.
Just a comment, thank you, Madam Warden. Thanks to staff for getting through this with some changes in staffing, and it's been a challenge to say the least, and I'm very happy it's over.
Are there any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is Small Business Enterprise Center update.
Be it resolved that the report Small Business Enterprise Center Update dated February 11th, 2022 from the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise be received and filed as information.
Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks, and seconded by Councillor Martin. And I'll turn this over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Warden, through to Council. Much of the information is detailed in the report. Advisory report as provided by the Small Business Enterprise Center, which is run in cooperation with Elgin County, but specifically facilitated by City of St. Thomas Economic Development Corporation staff. Be happy to answer any specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are there any questions for Brian? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item is the 2022 South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation Board of Director appointments.
Be it resolved that the report titled 2022 South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation Board of Director Appointments dated February 10th, 2022 from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism and the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise be received and filed, and that County Council appoint Warden French and Deputy Warden Marks to the South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors for 2022, and further that County Council appoints the General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise and the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism to the South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation Resource Advisory Group for 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ketchupa and seconded by Councillor Purcell. And are Kate going to be taking this, or are you, Brian? Okay.
Through you, Madam Warden, as per the recommendations, the staff report is self-explanatory, I hope. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Brian? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is Curry Road Pedestrian Crossing Construction.
Be it resolved that Armstrong Paving and Materials Group Limited be selected for the Curry Road Pedestrian Crossing Construction Project, contract number 2022-T04 at a total price of $130,135.70 exclusive of HST, and that the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer be directed and authorized to sign the contract.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks and Councillor Jiguer, and I'll turn this over to Brian.
Thank you, Madam Warden, through you to Council. I first want to acknowledge our county engineering staff who support us in the design of this project. Their support and their expertise is valuable as we aim to identify savings through our process internal. But with that said, the tender results are before you. They did come in a little higher than anticipated. We believe it's just a reflection of market pricing. All submitted bids were relatively competitive. The anticipated deficit we feel will be offset by efficiencies from other capital projects to be tendered later this year. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Deputy Warden Marks.
I think Brian just answered my question that I'm certainly in favor of it. Always in favor of public safety, but we did quite a few of them down in Port Stanley and Belmont, and the costs seemed to be quite a bit higher, but I assumed it was a reflection of our current times, and, you know, the bids were fairly competitive, so, but it is, you know, it's kind of, prices are high.
Are there any further comments concerning this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item is Hamlet of Richmond Reconstruction Tender Award.
Be it resolved that Cassidy Construction London Limited be selected for the Hamlet of Richmond Reconstruction Project, contract number 2022-T03 at a total price of $2,802,639 exclusive of HST, and that the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer be directed and authorized to sign the contract.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Jones, and seconded by Councillor Ketchupah, and I'll turn it over to you again, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Warren, through to council. Tender results are before you. Self-explanatory. Staff is happy to report that we're under budget with respect to this project. So happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Brian? Go ahead, Councillor Ketchupah.
Thank you, Madam Warden, through you to staff. Brian, was Cassidy the ones that did the Vienna rebuild?
They were.
Have they improved their dust control methodology?
They're using water anymore?
I noted the same concerns, and we actually touched base with several other municipalities that they've worked with over the last couple of years, and we understand that their internal processes, both mechanical and personnel, have greatly improved.
Thank you for that.
Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is transfer payment agreement for the Community Paramedicine for Long-Term Care Program.
Be it resolved that the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized and directed to enter into the transfer payment agreement to receive $4,480,300 from the Ministry of Long-Term Care for the implementation of the Community Paramedicine for Long-Term Care project, and that bylaw 22-13 to authorize the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer to execute the transfer payment agreement on behalf of Elgin County be enacted.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Mennel and Councillor Martin, and I'll turn this over to you, Julie.
Pardon, I think the report is self-explanatory, though I would be pleased to answer any questions that council might have.
Are there any questions for Julie? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is council correspondence and items for consideration. The first one is a letter from Elgin Federation of Agriculture. So I have a resolution, so are we just gonna have a discussion, Julie, first and see if?
We could alternatively, Madam Warden, we could resolve that the letter be received and filed, and then subject to council's direction, make amendments accordingly.
Is that okay with council? Okay, so we'll need someone to move and second that. Councillor Purcell and Councillor Ketchupah. And all those in favor? And that's carried. And the next item as well, Julie, would we approach it the same way?
Be it resolved that the letter from Suzanne out here, Councillor Ketchupah, Schultz-Hauer,
Yeah, I believe that's.
be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Jones and Councillor Ketchupah. All those in favor? And that's carried. Items for information consent agenda. So there are several items on there. I'll read the resolution and then we'll talk about it.
Certainly.
Questions?
Be it resolved that correspondence items number 7.2.1 to 7.2.5 be received and filed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Martin and Deputy Warden Marks. Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
I just want to commend Betsy McClure's report again. It's an excellent report and it's something that we do support, and I I'm glad to see it's gradually becoming much more balanced throughout the whole county, and it's a very important initiative.
It is, and I agree with you 100% on that. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we'll move into other business. Are there any statements or inquiries by members? No notice of motion. Matters of urgency. And closed meeting. So a resolution, please.
Be it resolved that we do now proceed into closed meeting session in accordance with the Municipal Act to discuss the following matters under Municipal Act Section 2392, in camera item number 1, which is telecommunications, camera item number 2, which is an organizational update.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Mennel and Councillor Jiguer. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And would everyone like to? I'd like to welcome everyone back. Motion to rise and report.
Be it resolved that we do now rise and report.
Someone to move and second. Councillor Mennel and Deputy Warden Marks. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move into the next.
Be it resolved for in-camera item number 1, which is telecommunications, resolved that staff proceed as directed.
Okay, someone to move in second, Councillor Jones and Councillor Ketchapah. All those in favor? And that's carried.
For closed session item number 2, which is an organizational update, be it resolved that staff proceed as directed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor McPhail and Councillor Jiguer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next one.
Be it resolved that the report titled Elgin County Rogers Telecommunications Equipment Consent and Road User Agreement dated February 15th, 2022 from Senior Legal Counsel be received and filed, and that County Council approve and authorize the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer to execute a proposed telecommunication equipment consent and road user agreement as between Elgin County and Rogers Telecommunications Incorporated.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Purcell and seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Do we want to have anything to report on that one?
Nick, did you have anything further to add? I wasn't sure if you had your hand up or not.
Nope, through you, Warden to Council. No, I was just content to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Be it resolved that we do now adopt recommendations from Committee of the Whole.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Martin and Councillor Bell, all those in favor? And that's carried. Julie?
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 22-13, being a bylaw to approve a transfer agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of the Province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Long-Term Care to fund the implementation of a community paramedicine for long-term care program, and further thereto, to authorize the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer to execute the said transfer payment agreement on behalf of Elgin County.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks and seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 22-14, being a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin at the February 22nd, 2022 meeting.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Go ahead, Julie.
Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 11:21 to meet again on March 8th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
Okay, Councillor Purcell and Deputy Warden Marks. All those in favor? And that's carried. And thank you very much.